What's up, it is? So this is going to be a quick video teaching you how to make your very own protection spell working. Now this is going to be something that I'm going to be using a candle with. You don't necessarily have to do this with a candle, but I find this is the best for beginners because you can learn how to go about creating your spells, and then as you're expanding and as you're continuing your practice, you can focus on incorporating more and more objects. So the first thing we're going to need is a bowl. Make sure it's fireproof, and make sure it is something that if you do spill any sort of wax or anything into it, it will not crack. Some ceramic pots, they may be fire resistant, but if the wax gets inside of it, then it will start to expand, and then eventually it will crack. Not due to the heat, but just due to the wax being liquid and then going inside of it and then cracking. Ask me how I know. So the first thing you're going to need is salt. Now this is a good base layer for any sort of protection working, simply because whenever you are working on your protection, you want to make sure it's grounded. So this is specifically sea salt. This is good for any sort of grounding. It's also a good protective salt, so if you want to add a custom black salt into this, a good base for that black salt would be some sea salt. So we're just going to add this in a circle. This is the last bit, so I'm not going to add the entire jar, but just going to add a circle. I like to do it 3 times because I like to sort of seal around whatever my intentions are in 3 different ways. So each circle will be one way of fulfilling the circle. So I protect myself, I protect my energies, I protect my environment. 3 different ways that you can simply go about adding your protection, but you don't necessarily have to add it that way. And the next thing is going to be rosemary. Now the reason why I like rosemary for this is because not only is it good for protection, but it's also a good grounding and sort of earthy toned element to your practice. The sea salt is more of a water tone, even if you get it from non-sea salt origin. So like if you get iodized salt or volcanic salt or Himalayan salt or any of that, that's more of the water element. So this is more of the earth element. The wind elements will be more of your spoken words, so whatever intentions you're putting into this. And then the fire element will be the candle, because that has the flame that's starting the energies, and that's sort of setting forth anything that you want to put. In your rosemary, you can add 3 different layers if you want to, or you can really focus on something. So if you wanted to protect yourself against a certain object or a certain person or a certain feeling, this is something that you would really want to emphasize into this herb. There are other herbs that you can use for this, but this is obviously just an example. If you want to, for your candle, you could also pop the base out, and then you can use a knife or you can use a nail or something, and you can mark the bottom. And then if you want to, I would suggest not doing this if you're a beginner. This is more if like you have a larger candle, but you can write out your intentions on the actual candle. Like I said, I wouldn't suggest you do that simply because it's not really something that's big enough for you to focus on. And I would rather, if you're a beginner, then you should really focus on what you're saying rather than what you're doing. Your voice has a lot of power in your spells, regardless of if you feel it does or not. It's a lot harder to do a spell silently than without using your words. So, like I said, that's just something that you can put into this. Also, if you don't want to add this, or if you want to add this into this, and maybe you don't have a bowl that is completely coated, so if wax does spill into it, it will break. If you want to prevent that, simply put some of your DNA, so just lick the bottom, some of your DNA in there. Don't eat the candle wax. And then you could just place it into there, and then that will contain the wax element of the spell, but it'll still give you the fire energies. And if you are going to be using any sort of color magic, this will be a good time to use a specific color lighter. I only have this one right now, so I'm not going to be showing you different examples, but any sort of earthy tone, so the water tone would be water, the water tone, which will be blue, the earth tone, which will be like the brown, and the sort of life tone, which will be the green. You could add those elements into this if you're wanting to ground out your protection or just ground out this spell in general. Also, make sure when you're lighting this, then you focus your intentions as it's burning down, and then once you see sort of a pool at the bottom where the wax is starting to form, Then at that point you can sort of seal over it, and then you can sort of say, okay, now that I put my energies into this and it's starting to burn, this is me sealing my intentions for this. And then you can go off and do whatever. You don't have to simply focus on this spell. If you want to, go ahead and do that. There's certain people that have these certain patience to just constantly spill out over the candle. That's one way of doing it, and that's one way you can do it in the beginning. But I would suggest you really focus on setting your intentions clearly, setting it, and then not really worrying about it. So set it and forget it. That'll be the best way for, I believe, beginners to be doing any sort of working like this. So as you're done, make sure it lights fully. If your candle does not light fully, or maybe it goes out, not all the times that is something spiritual. Sometimes if you're doing a protection working specifically and that happens, maybe you need something to be cleansed out of you before you put up your protection, because you don't want to be protecting something that's going to be harming you. But as this is burning down, you want to focus your intentions on this. You want to say your affirmations into it, and then once it's finally like pulled up in the bottom, and then you want to seal it, then you can close it out, and then you can finish with your spell. You don't necessarily have to do it this way, but this is just how I would go about creating a protection spell or creating any sort of protection working for me. This is what I would do. If you'd like to know anything else about hoodoo or witchcraft related content, just leave it in the comments below. I'll make a video about that. And if you'd like to learn more, just subscribe to my channel. Have a good day, night life. Enjoy yourself. Be happy.